Okay, I want you to think about a customer, just one. Maybe it's someone walking into your shop or, a client you're emailing right now.
Hmm.
In the grand scheme of things, they probably feel like a blip on the radar, right? A single transaction.
Yeah.
So here's the question. What is the specific dollar value of that one person?
And just to be clear, we're not talking about what's on the receipt they just printed out. Not the $40 for lunch or $100 for a consultation. We mean the lifetime value.
Yeah, if you had to put a price tag on the whole relationship, where do you land? $500, maybe a couple thousand.
It's usually much, much higher than people think. So today's deep dive is based on the business classic Customers for Life by Carl Sewell and Paul B. Brown.
And we're also looking at its international impact. I see the Arabic translation here, Zaba'in Mada al-Hayat, which shows these ideas really travel.
They're universal. And Carl Sewell, who built one of the most successful luxury car dealership empires in America, he actually sat down and did the math on this.
And the number he came up with, it completely changes the entire calculus of how you run a business. He figured out that one single customer is worth $332,000.
$332,000. And you have to remember, he calculated this decades ago. So if you adjust for inflation, that number is even more staggering today.
That's a massive asset. It shifts the whole conversation from sales to something more like asset management.
It really does. And that figure, $332,000, that's the North Star for everything we're going to talk about today. The mission of this deep dive is to unpack how Sewell took a dealership from, $10 million in revenue in '68 to over $250 million.
And he did it in an industry that people famously hate.
Oh, absolutely. Car dealers and mechanics?
Right. Historically, that's right down there with dentists and, tax auditors in terms of things people just dread.
It's an industry basically built on distrust, on inconvenience, and that nagging fear you're being ripped off. So the logic here is if Sewell could build a customer service empire in that environment,
then these principles will work anywhere. For software, for retail, for hospitality, anything.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's dig into that $332,000 figure first. I have to admit, I'm a little skeptical that one person buys that many cars. Is he assuming I'm buying a fleet of Ferraris or something?
No, he's looking at the household. Sewell actually studied the data. He found that if a customer is truly satisfied, loyal to the core, they don't just buy one car from you.
Right.
They buy every car they'll drive for the rest of their life from you. Then they send their spouse to buy a car. Then their kids.
Okay, so we're looking at volume over a long, long time.
Plus service. That's the really big one. Maintenance, tires, bodywork, oil changes. When you add up every single transaction a loyal family makes over 30 or 40 years, the revenue generated is $332,000.
It completely reframes the P&L statement. If I'm a $20 transaction, I'm just a line item. You can afford to lose me. But if I'm a $332,000 asset,
You're an investment.
you're an investment. You don't skimp on maintenance for a high-yield asset.
Yep. That's the psychological shift. Sewell talks about this aha moment that comes from doing the math. He uses a billing dispute as the perfect example. Picture a customer at the counter, furious about a $25 charge.
We've all been there. I didn't authorize this, or you said it would be free. It's $25. But for a business owner, especially a small one, $25 is $25.
Yeah.
It's hard to just let it go on principle.
It is hard, but that's the transactional trap. The old way of thinking says, I'm right, you're wrong, pay me. You want to win the argument.
Yep.
Sewell just looks at the math and asks, is winning this $25 battle worth risking the $332,000 war?
Well, when you put it like that, obviously not. You just wipe the charge.
You wipe the charge and you do it with a smile. Because that customer walks out that door and never comes back. You didn't just lose $25. You lost the $331,975 they were going to spend with you.
That makes the generosity feel logical, not just, altruistic. It's a cold, hard business decision to be nice.
It's pure economics. Service isn't a cost center. It's an insurance policy on that asset.
But here is where most businesses fall apart. They get the math, conceptually. They want the customer to stay. So they just tell their staff, be nice, smile more, and they think that's the solution.
And that is where Sewell drops the hammer. He has a commandment that basically says, systems, not smiles.
Systems, not smiles. I really appreciate that distinction because I've definitely been smiled at by people who are completely incompetent. A smile doesn't fix a broken product.
Politeness is absolutely useless if the system fails. You can say please and thank you all day, but if my car isn't fixed, or if your software keeps crashing or the food is cold, I'm not coming back. The smile is the icing, but the system is the cake.
So what does a system even look like in this context? Because good service is such a vague, fuzzy term.
Sewell identified the biggest friction point in his industry, and it wasn't the price, it was the sheer inconvenience. Being without a car is a nightmare. You have to bum a ride or sit in some depressing waiting room for 3 hours.
Or wait for that shuttle van that smells like old upholstery and takes 35 minutes to go 2 miles.
Exactly. Sewell looked at that and said, this is a systemic failure. So he didn't just offer rides, he built a massive fleet of loaner cars. And I don't mean 3 or 4 spare clunkers. He maintained a fleet of 150 vehicles, new Cadillacs, Hyundais, Chevrolets.
A fleet of 150 cars isn't a perk. That's basically running a Hertz franchise inside your own dealership. The logistics must have been insane.
Oh, it's a logistical monster. You have to track them, insure them, fuel them. And Sewell went a step further. He realized that if a customer gets into a dirty loaner car or one that's low on gas, the system has failed again. It creates a negative impression.
Right, because now you're doing them a favor, but you're doing it badly.
So he bought a separate mechanic shop just to maintain his loaner fleet. He had a whole team whose only job was to wash, fuel, and prep those 150 cars so they were showroom ready every single time.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate. That sounds incredibly expensive. You're holding millions of dollars in inventory just so people can drive them for free. How does that not just kill his margins?
It's a totally valid question, but you have to go back to the LTV, the lifetime value. If that loaner car system is the reason a customer stays for 30 years, the cost of that fleet is tiny compared to the revenue you keep. It removes the barrier. Suddenly, getting your car fixed isn't an inconvenience.
It's just a swap.
It's just a swap. You drive a nice, clean car for a day, the transaction becomes frictionless.
And he also attacked the idea of banker's hours, which is another one of my huge personal grievances. The fact that a service business closes at 5:00 p.m. exactly when I'm getting off work is just baffling.
It's the arrogance of the old model. We are open 9 to 5 because that suits us. Sewell flipped it. He said, if we want to serve the customer, we do it on their time, not ours. So he implemented hours from 7:30 a.m. to 8:00 p.m. He opened on Saturdays.
Which is pretty standard now, but back then, that was heresy.
It was revolutionary. And the source material points out they were willing to work holidays or late into the night if a situation demanded it. There's a mention of mechanics staying until midnight to finish a job because the customer needed the car for a trip the next morning.
That level of availability, that leads into what I think is the most controversial and maybe the most dangerous part of his philosophy. It's the policy. If a customer asks, the answer is yes.
If a customer asks, the answer is yes.
My immediate reaction to that is a recipe for being a doormat. If you say yes to everything, customers are going to walk all over you. They'll ask for free cars or make completely unreasonable demands. How does a business survive that?
Sewell would argue that your fear of being taken advantage of is costing you a fortune. He found that 99% of customers are reasonable. They just want their problem solved.
And the 1%?
You deal with them. But you don't build your policies around the 1% of bad actors. You build them for the 99% of good ones.
So what does this look like in the real world? Because it's not just about car repairs, is it?
No, it's about becoming the solution center for the customer's entire life. The famous story is the Paris incident. A loyal Sewell customer was on vacation in Paris. Something went wrong. They needed to change travel plans urgently, but they couldn't get through to the airline, the travel agency, nobody. They were stuck.
So naturally, they call a car dealership in Dallas, Texas. As one does.
As one does when they trust a brand that much. They called the dealership. Now, a normal employee would say, "Sir, this is a Chevy dealer. Please call American Airlines."
Right, not my department.
But the Sewell employee took the details, got on the phone, rearranged the entire travel booking from their desk in Dallas, and called the customer back in Paris to confirm it was all handled.
That's absurd. A car dealer acting as a travel agent. Why on earth would you take on that headache?
Because that customer is worth $332,000. And because now that customer is never, ever going to buy a car from a competitor. Sewell's point is that if you can solve a problem for a customer, you just do it, even if it's not your job.
There's another story that illustrates the financial logic of this even better. The Midnight Key Rescue.
Yes. This is the perfect answer to the "it's too expensive" argument. A customer lands at the airport late at night, like midnight, and realizes they've lost their car keys. They're stranded.
Total panic mode. Been there.
They called the dealership. Sewell sent a mechanic out. The mechanic drove all the way to the airport, found the car, and made a new key on the spot so the customer could drive home.
And I'm guessing the bill for an emergency midnight service call was pretty substantial.
The mechanic refused to take any payment.
Okay, now hold on. That's actual hard costs. You got gas, overtime, materials. Why give that away for free?
This is where Sewell's genius really kicks in. He classifies that expense not as a service cost, but as marketing. Just think about it. What is that customer going to do the next day at work?
They are going to tell everyone they know. You will not believe what my car dealer did for me at midnight for free.
Precisely. You could spend $10,000 on a billboard or a radio ad and not get the kind of authentic, high-trust, word-of-mouth advertising that one incident generated. Sewell argues that heroic service is the most efficient marketing budget you can possibly spend.
That is a brilliant way to reframe the expense. It's not a loss. It's a customer acquisition cost. But let's talk about the money again, because usually high service signals high prices. And I know Sewell isn't the cheapest mechanic in town.
He's not, and he's very upfront about that.
So how do you keep people from feeling ripped off? Even with the amazing service, if I think I'm overpaying, I'm still resentful.
Sewell manages the psychology of pricing with a technique that is just deceptively simple. Under-promise, over-deliver. But he applies it specifically to the estimate.
What do you mean?
Okay, let's say a repair is going to cost $90. If the service advisor tells you it'll probably be about $85 and then hands you a bill for $90, what's your emotional reaction?
I feel cheated. It's only $5, but you lied to me. I braced for 85 and you hit me with 90.
You feel like you lost. Now, same repair, cost is $90. Sewell teaches his advisors to estimate $100. It looks like it'll be about $100.
So I brace myself for paying 100.
You come to pick up the car, the bill is $90. The advisor says, hey, good news, we got it done for less than we thought.
I feel like I won. I just saved $10.
Even though the amount of money leaving your pocket is exactly the same in both scenarios, satisfaction is purely relative to expectation. By setting the expectation a little higher than reality, Sewell makes sure the customer always feels like they got a win.
That requires so much discipline, though.
Yeah.
Most businesses are terrified to quote a high price up front because they think the customer will just walk away. They want to bait you with a low number.
And that bait and switch just destroys trust. And once trust is gone, that $332,000 asset is gone. Sewell applies this to time, too. If the car will be ready at 4:00 p.m., tell the customer 5:00 p.m. When you call them at 4:00, you're a hero, promise 4:00 and deliver at 4:00, and you're incompetent.
It's all about controlling the narrative. Now, knowing if you're actually succeeding at this is a whole other challenge. Sewell has a very specific take on feedback. He hates those long 20-page surveys we all get, right?
Oh, he despises them. And honestly, they're disrespectful of the customer's time. If I just spent money with you, why are you asking me to now work for free, filling out your form? So Sewell boiled it all down to just 3 vital questions.
Let's run through them, because I think they cover the entire business model we've been talking about.
Question 1. Did you pay what you expected to pay?
Which checks the under-promise, over-deliver on pricing.
Question 2. Was the work ready when promised?
Checks the time management system.
And question 3. Was the work done right the first time?
That's the basic competence check.
That's it. And he argues that if the answer to any of those is no, you have failed. It doesn't matter if you gave them a free cappuccino or if the waiting room had leather seats. If the bill was a surprise, the car was late, or the fix didn't work, the system failed.
It just cuts through all the noise. But building a company that can actually deliver yes on those 3 questions every single time, that requires a very specific internal culture. You can't just mandate this from the top.
And this is where we have to talk about the Japanese connection that's mentioned in the book. Sewell traveled to Japan to meet with Toyota engineers back when Japanese manufacturing was just starting to terrify the American auto industry.
Yeah, this would have been the era where American cars were seen as, well, getting sloppy, and Japanese cars were becoming bulletproof.
And Sewell saw the concept of Kaizen, continuous improvement. But it wasn't just a poster on a wall. He noticed the Toyota engineers were obsessed with incremental gains. It wasn't about reinventing the wheel every day. It was about making the wheel spin 1% smoother.
Right. In America, we have this sort of project-based mindset. Okay, we fixed the customer service department. It's done. Let's go play golf.
The Japanese philosophy was, we hit the benchmark, now we raise the benchmark. Sewell realized customer expectations are a moving target. What was amazing service 5 years ago is just standard today. So if you aren't constantly improving, you're actually falling behind.
But how do you get a mechanic in Dallas to care about Kaizen? How do you get the guy changing the oil to care about the $332,000 vision?
You have to treat them like partners. And this is the part of the book that often gets overlooked. Sewell is absolutely adamant that you cannot have a 5-star external service with a 1-star internal culture.
You can't treat your employees like dirt and expect them to treat the customer like gold.
Impossible. If a mechanic is underpaid, disrespected, and working in a dirty shop, he's going to rush the job. He's going to leave grease on the steering wheel. He's not going to care about your system. Sewell calls his employees partners, and he puts his money where his mouth is.
One of his commandments explicitly talks about wages, doesn't it?
Yes. He believes in paying top-of-market wages. If you want the best mechanics, the ones who can fix it right the first time, you have to pay for them. He views high wages not as a cost, but as an efficiency driver. A great employee does the work of 2 mediocre ones and doesn't make mistakes that lose customers.
So it's a complete ecosystem. You have the LTV math, the $332,000 providing the motivation. You have the systems loaner cars, hours removing the friction. You have the psychology pricing, the yes policy building the bond. And underneath it all, you have the culture fair pay, continuous improvement, making it all possible.
You can't cherry pick. If you just do the yes policy but pay your staff minimum wage, they'll resent the extra work and the whole system will just collapse. If you do the loaner cars but constantly overcharge on the bill, the customer will take the free ride and then leave you. It all has to work together.
It's really about playing the long game in a world that's obsessed with the short term. Most businesses are focused on this quarter's numbers. Sewell is focused on the customer's lifetime.
And the irony is, by focusing on the lifetime, the quarterly numbers end up being fantastic anyway.
I think that's a powerful place to wrap up the business side of things. But before we go, we always like to leave our listeners with something to chew on, provocative thought to take this outside of the boardroom.
Well, we've been talking about cars and money, but I want you to think about this lifetime value concept in your personal relationships. Think about your spouse, your best friend, your neighbor.
Okay, so what's the LTV of a best friend?
Emotionally, it's infinite, right? But think about how we treat them. How often do we get into these petty squabbles with the people we love? We argue over who forgot to take out the trash or who said what 5 years ago. That is the exact equivalent of the $25 billing dispute.
Wow, that hits home. We burn relationship capital over these tiny things because we're focused on the transaction, the argument happening right now, instead of the lifetime relationship.
If you viewed your partner as a lifetime asset that you want to keep forever, would you really care about being right in some silly argument? Or would you focus more on the yes policy? Would you focus on removing inconvenience for them?
It suggests we should stop trying to win the fight and start trying to secure the relationship.
And maybe apply the pricing strategy too. Under-promise and over-deliver. Don't say you'll be home at 6:00 if you know you might get stuck in traffic. Say 6:30 and then walk in the door at 6:5 with flowers.
I like that. The secret to a happy life is estimating a later arrival time.
It just might be.
Well, there you have it. Whether you're selling Cadillacs or just trying to be a better friend, the principles hold up. I want to encourage you, the listener, to try one of these this week. Go undervalue an estimate and over-deliver on the result. Just see what happens. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.